Now, our next speaker has been a regular participant at COFES for some time. She was a keynote speaker 4 years ago, I believe. She is an entrepreneur. She is starting up a business. She's been an inspiration to me, and she is a firecracker. I would like all of you to help me welcome Terry Swack. Terry, please come forward. Firecracker?
Thank you very much. Well, now that I have your attention,
Let's move you right on around here to the back. And
just use these.
yes, that should work also. And you can point.
Okay.
Little button for the laser.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you all for coming out early this morning. Ken's right. I gave a keynote here 4 years ago on sustainability, innovation, and the future of the engineering software industry, which was the talk that Brad asked me to give, a daunting topic. And I put up a slide with big type that said, "My customers aren't asking for this." And I asked people in the room, okay, raise your hands if you're thinking this right now or you've said it in the last 3 months. My customers aren't asking for this. People kind of timidly went, come on, get them up. And half the room put their hands up, and I said, look, you've got 3 things to say. One is, if you wait for your customers to ask for it, it's too late. The second thing is that customers can't ask for innovation. We all know that. They don't know what to ask for. And the third thing is, I said, you guys make all the software that every designer and engineer in the world uses to design cities and products and infrastructure and transportation. You have a moral obligation to make software that's smarter so that these people can make smarter decisions. And so I'm really happy, here we are 4 years later, and stuff has started to happen. And so it's time to start talking about this as a category. I talk about it as environmental performance software, and now to really reinforce that, designing greener products is the space that I chose to be in, but really designing greener anything is not a one-size-fits-all tool kind of problem, and I'm going to say it's not a one-size-fits-all PLM tool kind of problem. And so, I'll posit the question, are today's solutions more like the emperor's new clothes, or are they actually enabling more meaningful decisions? And so I'm going to take you through questions that customers should be asking both the people in their organizations and their software providers. So I'm pleased to say that there actually has been now conferences about sustainable product design. This was actually the very first one. It was in October of 2010. And what's really nice is the title of the conference. They didn't care about brevity. It was really important to get across what they wanted to get across. And what's great, too, the speakers were not just the usual suspects like Nike and HP and Toyota, but they had folks from Rolls-Royce and Coke. And let's take a look at the sponsors. The top 4, these guys are all already in the sustainability space, and these guys are consultants. These guys make the high-end LCA tools. They're consultants, and then here's us. And so there's a lot of new kinds of companies converging in this space. Brad said, Brad said a lot of the companies in the industry are here, but actually that's not true, not in the industry that we're creating. And so at this conference of people in this room, Jorgen and Asheen and I, so PTC, SolidWorks, and Sustainable Minds were the only companies there. And it was kind of a pathetic little trade show. So how many of you are familiar with Gartner's hype cycle? Good. Okay. So here's where we are as an industry, right? We're getting up to the peak here. And so we've built up a bunch of expectations. People are getting excited. They're trying to use it on stuff. And we are about to take the big fall right down that trough of disillusionment, which means that customers are going to be buying our products. They're going to believe what we tell them, that they're going to be able to really make meaningful, greener products. And then they're going to find out that they can't. They don't really know how to use them. People in the organization don't know how to use them. And what's going to happen is that a bunch of the companies that are in the space are going to go out of business, and the ones that figure it out are going to recover down here and come back up this slope of enlightenment and actually finally make some money and make some change. So in this hype cycle report, they had many categories of sustainability software, but these are the two I'm going to pull out. They looked at life cycle assessment tools, and this is just an excerpt of their analysis. And what they're saying is that it's very early, not a lot of impact yet. And when we look at the sample vendors, again, half of them are already in the sustainability space making software. And here we have PTC, SAP, and us, nobody. Then they have a category they're calling Sustainable Design PLM, and this is probably a little bit more recognizable. And you guys all know Mark, he's here. Again, early market penetration, it's maturing, but the vendors are more recognizable. So really what I'm going to talk about is that the key learning coming out of all this is that just new software tools are never the answer to solving new complex business problems. That it's about new knowledge and new skills and new processes that ultimately are enabled by software. And so really what we're looking for is building user-centered business systems. So this is my one slide about sustainable mines. Our mission is to operationalize environmental performance into mainstream product development and manufacturing, and so embracing that idea of building online business systems. So as an industry, the place to start is by defining the PL and PLM, and not just the traditional market life cycle, but really now looking at the whole systems and the full life cycle, starting from raw materials through end of life. And here's the financial business reason that most people like, which is that we all know that 75 to 80% of the manufacturing costs are committed in early stage design, and those same decisions, like materials and lifetime and some things we've already been talking about, get decided then, and those same decisions lock in the environmental performance. And so if you don't have visibility into environmental performance early on, just like anything else, it's too expensive to make changes. So environmental performance has really just become the newest criteria in product development that sits alongside functional performance, cost, aesthetics, all the ones that exist today. And it's incumbent upon us to convey, just as Prasad was doing, that environmental performance embodied in the definition of that means economic results. It's not about sacrificing one thing for the sake of something else. And it has to be operationalized into product development for things to really change. And so the question becomes, how will organizations learn and implement? And this brings me to the point, there's not a one-size-fits-all tool solution. Companies are going to buy many kinds of tools. It's a very nascent field of software. It's a unique convergence of requirements. And it's going to require cultural, organizational process and workflow, which is really the challenge of implementing any kind of PLM system. So these are the questions that companies need to be asking as they embark on trying to make greener products. So what are the business objectives for environmental performance improvement? Who are the users responsible for making it happen? When in the product development process is it done? How is environmental performance being measured? How will results be used to support business objectives? And how does the software help operationalize the knowledge in the process? So going one by one very quickly, there are increasingly critical business drivers for environmental performance improvement, from the cost of natural resources, regulation, competition from brands that are already making greener products, managing supply chain risk, and then the big opportunity is through new product development, new markets and revenues from those new products. Who are the users responsible for making it happen? You know, it's not just the designer or just the engineer. There's lots of people and companies who are responsible for making decisions about what products to make. And we're seeing the emergence of this role, which is very important, product stewards, product stewardship. They're coming out of the environmental health and safety. And literally I've heard people and companies say, well, the VP in Europe called me because our carbon footprint is high and we have environment in our title. Environmental health and safety. It's like, I have no idea what to do. So lots of people are responsible for making greener products. Okay, when in the product development process is it going to be done? Is it going to be done early to benchmark products? Is it going to help design teams think differently? Is it going to be part of the stage gate process so you can continuously see improvements, or is it going to be required at the end to validate and report results? Next is, how is environmental performance being measured? And there's a number of different kinds of, we call key performance indicators. There's environmental impacts. There are process flows, which are the results of manufacturing, and then there are the impacts from creating materials. So what methodology is going to get used to measure what types of impacts? Where's the data coming from? How transparent will the methodology and the data sources be in the tools that we build? And how credible are they? Are they going to try to be compliant with ISO? Is ISO still meaningful for us as an industry? Then how will the results be used, again, to support business objectives? Is it to make informed trade-offs in product development? Is it for business development, to actually win new business, either if you're a service provider or a manufacturer? Is it to create meaningful marketing communications? Is it to be able to provide data for RFPs that you're getting from customers, for external reporting, competitive claims, eco-labeling, compliance? And finally, how does the software help operationalize the knowledge and the process? Will it help define and manage objectives and goals? Will it become a learning and knowledge management environment? Will it be easy to use and understandable by everybody? Does it enable collaboration, both inside the organization and with all of the participants in the product development process? And does it and how does it operate with other software systems? And so the way I kind of look at it is, now that environmental performance is the latest criteria in product development, it just becomes part of the stage gate process as you go through product development. And frankly, people are using lots of different tools at lots of different stages of development, which are all have data that are inputs into the product development process. So, the conclusions are, designing greener products is not just a tool kind of problem. You're still going to need the traditional high-end Gavi or SEMA Pro for full-scale LCA. They're challenging to use because they're complex and costly for early-stage design. Building tools into CAD products help designers and engineers consider materials, and it's a great start. It's a great tool to provide those folks. We need to think larger in terms of collaboration and full life cycle. And we need new processes. You have to learn, assess, design, model, visualize, report, and be able to access that data on a consistent basis. So ultimately, companies are going to need to be able to manage and track all that data. They're going to need to be able to understand what it means and be able to communicate about it. They're going to need to be able to benchmark and set environmental performance improvements. They're going to need to be able to interoperate with other sources of data, customize it to their business. It needs to always be up to date. And the bottom line is, it needs to be affordable. because so many people in a company have to use it. Companies aren't going to buy it if they can't afford it. So that's my talk. And I finished early too.
Thank you.
So we have time for 2 questions. Do we have questions out there? Oh, come on. There, we've got one.
At the very beginning of your presentation, which I appreciated very much, I noticed that you mentioned a few vendors talking about the CAD sustainability products, and some other were not mentioned. I mean, which kind of a assumption of yours is that? I'll make an example. There was SolidWorks was mentioned, and Siemens PLM was not mentioned. So how can you say that those are vendors pursuing sustainability objectives and others are not?
Yeah, no, Siemens is definitely working on sustainable product development. I think you're referring to the slide about the conference that I showed. I was just showing you the sponsors who had sponsored that conference. That wasn't intended to be a list of all the players. Yeah. Yeah, and Siemens wasn't there.
I'm sorry.
Conspicuously absent.
Do we have another question? Well, everybody help me thank Terry again.